Welcome to ISO 27001 for small businesses. In the next few minutes, we'll show you how small organizations can implement a practical, right-sized information security management system without the complexity and cost that large enterprises face. You'll learn which ISO 27001 requirements scale down naturally, which Annex A controls matter most for small companies, and how to achieve certification with a lean team and limited budget. ISO 27001 is not just for large corporations. Let's get started. Let's start by understanding why small businesses struggle with ISO 27001 and how to overcome the common barriers to implementation. The same standard applies to both large enterprises and small businesses, but the implementation looks very different. Small businesses can succeed with one dedicated security champion supported by management, using lightweight tools like spreadsheets and cloud document platforms. 20 to 30 focused policies covering the controls that actually matter for your risk profile. Implementation in 3 to 6 months is realistic with the right guidance and templates. Let's define the concepts that small businesses most need to understand about ISO 27001. The most important concept for small businesses is scalability. ISO 27001 uses the phrase appropriate to the organization throughout the standard. A 10-person startup needs far less documentation, fewer formal processes, and simpler controls than a multinational corporation. The standard requires proportionality, not bureaucracy. The statement of applicability is where small businesses gain the most flexibility. You declare which of the 93 Annex A controls apply to your organization and justify excluding those that do not. A small company without a data center legitimately excludes physical data center controls. A company without software development excludes secure development controls. Risk-based scoping is critical for small businesses. You define your ISMS scope based on what you actually need to protect, your most valuable information assets, and the services your customers care about. A focused scope means fewer controls, less documentation, and faster certification. In small businesses, one person often serves as information security manager, risk assessor, and internal auditor. ISO 27001 accepts this as long as roles are documented and independence is maintained for internal audits. You do not need a full security department to achieve certification. Now let's cover the practical implementation approach that works for small businesses, focusing on the controls that deliver the most value. Not all 93 Annex A controls are equally important for small businesses. Here are the 10 that deliver the most protection for your investment. Access control is your number one priority. Implement multi-factor authentication, enforce the principle of least privilege, and manage user accounts throughout the employee lifecycle. For small businesses, this single control area prevents the majority of security incidents. Backup and recovery is your insurance policy. Implement the 3-2-1 rule. 3 copies of data on 2 different media types, with 1 copy offsite or in the cloud. Test your restores regularly. For small businesses, ransomware recovery capability is often the difference between survival and closure. Security awareness training transforms your team from your biggest vulnerability into your strongest defense. Regular training on phishing recognition, password hygiene, and incident reporting costs almost nothing but dramatically reduces your risk profile. Endpoint protection and patch management cover the devices your team uses daily. Deploy endpoint protection on all devices, enable automatic updates, and maintain a patching schedule for critical systems. Cloud-based endpoint management makes this achievable even without dedicated IT staff. Here is a practical timeline for small businesses to implement ISO 27001 and prepare for certification. Months 1 and 2 establish the foundation. Secure management commitment. Define a focused scope around your core business services. Conduct a risk assessment using a simple likelihood times impact methodology, and perform a gap analysis against Annex A to identify what you already have and what you need. Months 2 and 3 focus on core documentation. Write the essential policies: information security policy, access control, acceptable use, and incident management. Complete the statement of applicability declaring which controls apply. Use templates rather than starting from scratch. Months 3 and 4 implement the priority controls identified in your risk assessment. Deploy technical controls like MFA and endpoint protection. Deliver security awareness training. Establish your incident response procedure and assess your critical suppliers. Months 5 and 6 prepare for certification. Conduct your internal audit. Hold the management review. Address any corrective actions and select your certification body. Many certification bodies offer pre-assessment visits that help small businesses identify final gaps before the formal audit. Let's cover the most common mistakes small businesses make when implementing ISO 27001. The biggest mistake is overdocumentation. Small businesses create hundreds of pages of policies that nobody reads or follows. ISO 27001 requires documented information that is appropriate to your size. 20 well-written, actually used policies beat 200 shelfware documents every time. Copying enterprise templates verbatim creates an ISMS that does not reflect your organization. Auditors will immediately see the disconnect between your documented processes and your actual operations. Adapt templates to match how your small business actually works. Treating certification as the finish line rather than a milestone is a common trap. The ISMS must deliver real security improvement, not just pass an audit. Focus on controls that genuinely protect your business, and certification will follow naturally. Trying to implement without genuine management support is guaranteed to fail. ISO 27001 Clause 5 requires demonstrated top management commitment. Without budget allocation, authority to enforce policies, and visible leadership support, the ISMS will stall. Let's close with the most important lessons for small businesses implementing ISO 27001. First, ISO 27001 genuinely scales down. A right-sized ISMS for a small business has fewer controls, simpler documentation, and shorter implementation timelines. 3 to 6 months and a modest budget is realistic with the right approach. Second, focus your effort on the 10 to 15 controls that address your actual risks. Your statement of applicability will legitimately exclude many controls. Concentrate resources where they provide the most protection for your specific business. Third, you do not need expensive GRC platforms. Spreadsheets, cloud documents, and open-source tools are perfectly acceptable. What matters is that your ISMS works and delivers results, not that it runs on enterprise software. And fourth, ISO 27001 certification gives small businesses a disproportionate competitive advantage. When a small company can demonstrate the same certification as large competitors, it levels the playing field and opens doors to enterprise customers and supply chains that would otherwise be closed. That wraps up our overview of ISO 27001 for small businesses. In the full Udemy course, you'll get a complete implementation roadmap designed for small teams, right-sized templates for every required document, practical guidance on which controls to prioritize, and preparation for the certification audit. Use the course to achieve ISO 27001 certification without enterprise-level complexity or cost. Thank you for watching. If you found this overview helpful, subscribe to the channel for more content, and check the description for the link to the full course. See you in the next video.